Hi everyone, I am Gulnar Jafarli from the Department of Language Curriculum Programs. Today, together with our distinguished speakers, we will take a closer look at the writing standards in the updated foreign language curriculum with a focus on English. Before we begin, let's get let's get to know more about our speakers. So I will invite each of you to introduce yourselves to our audience.
Narmina, ladies first.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. I'm Narmina Aliyeva, doctor of the Baku Engineering University in Azerbaijan, and I'm the head of English Language Department. Very nice to meet everybody here.
Hi, I'm Nathan Carr. I'm a professor of TESOL, teaching English to speakers of other languages at California State University, Fullerton. And I'm also the department chair, head of department for the Department of Modern Languages and Literatures. My PhD is in applied linguistics from the University of California at Los Angeles, specialized in second language assessment. But my day job is mostly teaching TESOL pedagogic methodology classes. Currently, I'm in Jordan as a Fulbright scholar at the Princess Alia University College campus of Al Balqa Applied University. If I said that to sound right. So welcome everybody. I have been the coordinating author for this project. I really want to thank the co-authors who did most of the writing, really. Armina here, Aliyeva, Ilyana Bashirova, Gunay Nadirova, and Arifa Rasulova. If they had not been doing this project, we would still be on page 5, probably, if I was doing it all myself. So great thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you. And then, Narmina, please stop me when we get to your slide because I don't have the numbers on the slides. So first, the goal of the new standards is for students to be able to communicate in the target language. This is very much aligned with the communicative language teaching approach. We want to use teaching materials that are as authentic as possible and as realistic for each level. And of course, we have to adapt and simplify materials and adapt and simplify real life things when we need to. Some principles of successful second language learning require that students get a lot of target language input. They need more than just input, but they must have comprehensible input. They also need opportunities for target language output and not just what color is my shirt? Blue. And then I've had my output for the day. No, it has to be sustained output. Like describe what the man is wearing and then talk for however long, depending on level. And then also students must have opportunities for interaction in the target language. If you don't have the input and the output and the interaction practice, then you don't really become proficient in the language. And the whole goal of this project is to help students become proficient in the languages they're studying by the time they graduate. So the teaching, the materials, the practice activities, the homework, all need to be providing all 3 of these things. And trouble advancing slides there. These standards are also based on the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, sometimes called the CEF, sometimes called the CEFR, but sometimes the CEF, the CEFR. I just usually say CEFR. And the CEFR was released in 2001. You can access it at coe.int. There's the link, and we could maybe put the link in the webinar in the comments later.
Could you please go to the next slide? Next slide. You're talking, and it's next slide. Yeah, thank you.
You're not seeing the CEFR overview slide?
Yes, yeah, CFR.
You do see it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay, good. And the CEFR describes language proficiency in 6 levels: A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. There's an updated companion volume that was released in 2020, and that's also available on the web for free. So you can see where all of this grew from. 2020 companion volume is important because there were some changes. It included all the tables, such as the illustrative scales, they're called, from the 2001 version, but it added more tables, has more descriptors for plus levels, A2 plus, B1 plus, etc. And also it adds pre-A1 descriptors for most things too. And then in chapter 5, with the linguistic competence descriptors, those were clarified. So here is an example of comparing the descriptors for overall written production between 2001 and the 2020 companion volume. So you can see for pre-A1, there is no pre-A1 in 2001. The original CEFR just says simple isolated phrases and sentences, but in 2020, they elaborate a little. They still have simple isolated phrases and sentences, but they gave more details about the kinds of things learners could write at. When you see the A2 descriptors.
Sorry, could you please change the slide? It is in next
not
slide.
Showing?
Could you, yeah.
I did.
Go to next slide.
I did. You know what? Let me try it. Let me stop sharing and share it again. Can you see it now?
Not yet.
It seems that when I change slides, it's taking a while to update.
Yeah, it looks like.
Because I'm looking at the slide now.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Now
It
it
might
works.
be better.
Yep, it works.
Now it's working. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So you can see there is no A1 in the original version. Then in 2001, they can write simple isolated phrases. They change write to produce. That's not a big change, but they add more details about the sorts of things people can write about at A1. A2 didn't change much. And B1 does become a little, it's not changed very much though. In fact, hardly at all. I'm going to move slides now. Can you see the new slide yet?
No, I can't see.
Not yet.
Okay. Well, the next slide is about comparing the descriptors for reports and essays in the 2001 version and the 2020 version. Of course, at pre-A1 and A1, you can't write any reports or essays. That's just not possible. In 2001, for A2, they said no descriptor available. It wasn't something that applied at A2. But since then, I guess the Council of Europe has decided that in A2, you can produce some very simple things, but it's like simple texts on familiar subjects of interest. And you're just connecting sentences with basic connectors like and, because, then. And it talks a little bit about giving impressions and opinions about topics of personal interest, but with everyday vocabulary and expressions. So they did add something for A2, but it's extremely limited. But again, it's there. And then for B1, the descriptor it didn't change very much, but they added more. Are you seeing the reports and essays descriptors yet? Narmina?
Yes,
I've moved on now to the comparison of descriptors for correspondence, but can you see it yet?
Yes, we can see.
Oh, good. So it's
Okay.
updating faster. So for correspondence, this is a very good example of how there were some significant changes in some places between the 2001 version and the 2020 version. You can see for pre-A1, again, there's nothing in 2001, and A2 plus, there were no descriptors. Those have been added in 2020. There's more detail for all of these descriptors in 2020 for A1, A2, and B1. And that made it a lot easier to describe each level because there was just more to work with. So there's a major innovation and a very big help, I think. Now, moving on, I'm going to talk about some general notes, just some small piece of information about these new standards. Often there are very small differences across the grades from one grade to another, because it was necessary to subdivide the CEFR levels. If it takes 2.5, 3 years to cover one level, then you have to break it into very thin pieces. It's like taking a thick slice of bread and trying to cut it into 2 or 3 slices of bread. So for example, students are at the pre-A1 level for 2.5 years. Then they spend 3 years moving from A1 to A2. So you're splitting one level into very small amounts of progress. If we didn't split those into smaller levels, which are very close, they're not that far apart from each other. If they didn't have just these very small differences from year to year, incremental changes, the only other option really would be to say we have the same standard for 2 years or 3 years, and the students are still trying to meet the same standard. We thought it was a bad idea to have the same target for 2 years or 3 years. So this was the only alternative to doing it. So if someone says, well, you hardly have any change between, it goes from very simple to simple, very short to short. That's not much change. Well, no, it's not much change, but that's the only way you can do it. So the next slide is an example of the progression of the CEFR levels across. So from grades 1, 2, and the first half of grade 3, we expect the students are at pre-A1. And then they're trying to meet the A1 level from the middle of grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, middle of grade 6. By middle of grade 6, we expect to have reached a solid A1, and then they start trying to reach A2. So we start giving them A2 structures, A2 content, A2 type tasks for the second half of grade 6, and then 7, 8, and half of 9. So by the middle of grade 9, when they're getting ready to take their potential school leaving exams, the 9th grade tests, they should be at A2. And the second half of grade 9, in fact, spring of grade 9, they'll be working on trying to reach A2 plus. And then we hope that they will be at the A2 plus level by the middle of grade 10. And then they start working on B1. So they have 1.5 years of trying to go from A2 plus to B1. 2.5 years to go from A2 to B1. And that is ambitious, but it's necessary given the ministry's targets. So another note, student readiness. This was an important consideration in all of the standards as we were writing these. If the students cannot perform a task in their first language yet, we don't want to ask them to do it in their second language. So if you cannot write an essay at this grade, as ask you to write an essay at that grade in English. That's just not reasonable to the students. They won't be able to do it, and then they'll hate the language. Now moving from A2 to B1 in 2.5 years, from mid grade 9 to grade 11, that is ambitious, and it's going to require serious student effort in grades 9, 10, and 11. Now another thing, there's an unavoidable problem. In these standards, we can't really describe grammar structures by level since languages are so different. We can for English only, because there's a project called the English Profile that aligns grammar structures to different CEFR levels. But if there may be similar projects that I'm not aware of for, say, French or Russian or Spanish or German or something. But that's going to be a language by language issue that has to be addressed. And it's unavoidable because the CEFR is supposed to cover every language, not just Romance languages, not just Germanic languages or Slavic languages. For teaching grammar, these standards are assuming something like PPP, presentation, practice, production. And when you do PPP, if you have a longer writing assignment, that would count on as a production thing. And there will be a couple of slides on just that, in fact, right now. So this webinar is focusing on teaching writing, but first we should include a note about the role of writing in grammar lessons. So in section 2, which is the requirements for teaching foreign languages, this section outlines the steps that teachers should follow in different types of lessons. Listening lessons, speaking lessons, pronunciation lessons, reading lessons, writing lessons, grammar lessons, vocabulary lessons. Nothing revolutionary, just quick summaries of what would be appropriate in a communicative curriculum. Also, section 8, the methodological recommendations on the planning of teaching materials for teaching foreign languages, is also covering a lot of this. Now, grammar lessons should follow the PPP model: presentation, practice, production, where production includes both guided practice activities and communicative practice activities. In a grammar lesson, the activities in the production phase could be spoken, or they could be written, or you could have spoken activities and written activities. It's probably good to have some of both if it's a general English class, not a writing specific or speaking specific class. Some spoken examples would be information gap activities, role plays, discussions. This would be communicative practice or guided practice, production phase. Some written examples would be writing a note, writing a paragraph, writing an email, writing a letter or an essay. Of course, it all depends on the level. Either way, an activity always needs to lead the students to use the grammar structure that's being practiced. So if we're working on the simple past, the writing task or speaking task should have students use the simple past. If we're trying to practice using modals for giving advice, at least in English, then the activity should require that. So whatever, and that seems like a very simple no-brainer, but I've found over time, it's easy for people to forget that. They have come up with a great activity, but it doesn't reinforce the target structure, which is the whole point of doing the activity in that lesson. And Armina, was this where you were taking over?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please go to the next slide.
Excuse me, just a quick reminder to our audience. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I will address them to our speakers to answer at the end of the session. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's start by looking at two key approaches to teaching writing on this slide, the product approach and the process approach. The product approach here focuses on what students produce at the end, the final written piece. It could be a paragraph, it could be an essay, it could be even a report. Students usually follow a model text, imitating structure, organization, and grammar. In other words, they learn by example. On the other hand, the process approach is more about how students get there. That's to say, this approach, which is very common in English-speaking contexts, emphasizing the stages of writing rather than just a finished text. Students go through a journey from generating ideas to planning, drafting, revising, and finally editing. So while the product approach highlights the destination, the process approach values the path students take to get there. Let's move on with the next one. Now let's take a close look at slide 14. the steps in process writing, which is first start with pre-writing, this stage where the student plan what they are going to write. They brainstorm ideas, they organize their thoughts, and think about how to structure their text. Next comes drafting. Here, the goal is simply to get ideas down on paper. It doesn't have to be perfect this time. This stage is all about fluency, not accuracy. Then we move to revising, where the students have to write the real improvement, to see real improvement happens. Students revisit their drafts, improving their content and organization. Maybe they add details or record sentences or make their ideas flow more smoothly. Finally, it comes editing, where they polish whatever they have written. We call it the polishing stage. They focus on grammar here, they focus on vocabulary, and they focus on mostly on accuracy, not fluency this time. Each draft can target on one or two language areas. For instance, verb tenses or subject-verb agreement. So through these 4 stages, pre-writing, drafting, revising, and editing, students grow both their ideas and their language skills. Let's look at the next slide, where we are going to talk how many drafts, you might ask us, how many drafts should students write? Well, there is no one-size-fits-all answer. For short pieces, like 1 or 2 sentences, 2 or 3 drafts might be enough. But for longer text, like paragraphs, essays, or formal emails, 3 or 5 drafts often give better results. The key point here is focus. Each draft should have a purpose. I know how it is difficult in Azerbaijani schools, like concerning to writing, but still we have to take into account each draft should have a purpose, maybe improving organization or refining grammar. And when students are doing peer or self-editing, it's essential to guide them carefully, give them a specific focus. For example, check your ideas or look for verb forms, which are really, really very helpful. So this clear structure helps them know exactly what to look for and how to improve. In the next slide, we are going to talk about key points of writing standards. Thank you, Nathan. Now let's shift gears a bit and connect this process to writing standards. Writing instruction officially begins in grade 2, and there are 3 main standards that guide teachers' progress. The number 1 is for 10th grade 4.1, writing connected text where students flow logically together. Number 2 is again for 10th grade, it is 4.2, writing different types of text, gradually increasing in length. And the next one is 4.3, writing to express clear ideas and main points. Each of these standards that you see on the slide is supported by several substandards that describe how writing skills develop step by step. Okay, let's go to the next one, where you are going to see first standard in more detail. So standard 4.1.1 uses connectors to link words, phrases, and sentences. Or if we simplify this wording, it comes out like the student writes coherent text, joining words, joining phrases, and sentences using linking words. So this standard help students move from writing isolated sentences to writing into flows naturally, an essential foundation for clear communication. Let's go with the next slide, where you are going to see standard 4.2, which focuses on producing different kinds of texts. It has 6 standards that you are going to see, substandards, sorry, that represent key writing skill. One is connecting sentences. Here, the student moved from short, simple sentences to longer, connected ones using and, but, because. Number 2, substandard is writing paragraphs where they progress from simple sentences to full paragraphs and eventually short essays. Writing notes is the next one, where they progress from single sentences into full paragraphs, like short essays, for example, everyday communication, writing text messages. It is appropriate and clear for real life situation. Writing emails, for example, it is structured properly with greeting, with body and conclusion. And there is one more there, filling out forms which accurately providing information where required. So these standards is all about functionality, helping students write effectively in different contexts they'll face in school and daily life. If we look at the next slide, where we are going to talk about standard 4.3, which focuses on clarity and meaning. It says that students should clearly express their ideas and main points. So substandard here include 4.3, sharing information accurately and fully, and 4.3.2, it is starting the main idea clearly. So this standard really captures essence of writing to communicate meaning effectively. And let's go to the next slide, where we are going to talk about, please go to the next one.
I did.
Where writing develops over grades. So finally, let's see the one, these skills connecting sentences, developing from grade to grade. So we see the progression where we start in early grades by writing letters and single words. Then by grade 4 and 5, you can see clearly from the slide that they begin writing short, simple sentences, phrases, sometimes linked by basic connectors. And they move to grade 7 and 8. They start producing series of sentences connected with simple linkers like and or but. By grade 11, here in the bottom, their writing becomes more complex. Longer sentences linked with a range of cohesive devices. So this gradual growth shows how writing standards guide students step by step forward fluency and coherence. So as we have seen from slides up to here that I have gone through, writing instructions is not just about producing a final piece. It's about guiding students through a structured, meaningful journey that develop both their ideas and their language. So Nathan, could you please continue with the next slide?
Okay, thank you, Nermina. Excuse me. Can you see the new slide?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm afraid I think the lag's getting better though. So a second example of how the substandards develop across the grades is for substandard 4.1.1, which is about linking words, phrases, sentences, or groups of sentences using connectors. So in grade 3, they're just linking, it doesn't apply in grades 1 or 2. They're linking words with very basic linear connectors, then linking words and sometimes phrases in 4th grade within a sentence, still just in a sentence, using still very basic linear connectors. Then still we're linking words and sometimes simple phrases within a sentence, still very basic linear connectors and slow development. And then by grade 6, they're linking a series of simple phrases or sometimes a series of simple sentences with simple linear connectors. So they're moving to what will become paragraphs, but they're starting with connecting sentences together, which is almost a paragraph by itself. And then by 7th grade, we want them to be linking several simple phrases or simple sentences or both with simple connectors, no longer just linear. We move then to simple phrases, simple sentences, simple connectors. By 9th grade, they're linking phrases and simple sentences to form a simple list of points using the most frequently occurring connectors. Notice, by the way, we're not using the term paragraph. The CEFR doesn't really make a big deal about paragraphs, which we found a bit frustrating, but we try to stay consistent with that. Certainly in English teaching, paragraphs are a big deal, as you probably all know. By 10th grade, they're linking a series of shorter, discrete, simple elements, and that could be sentences or not just simple sentences anymore, or a cluster of sentences making one simple idea. Moving, though, to simply connected linear sequences of points. They're still using very high frequency connectors because they're still not quite trying to just get to B1. They're not writing Shakespeare yet, nor will they at B1. But by 11th grade, we want them to link these simple elements into connected linear sequences of points. And they'll be using a limited number of cohesive devices, but there is cohesion emerging. So all this goes from connecting some words, connecting some phrases, connecting sentences, and this starts to lead to things that can become paragraphs. And then you connect paragraphs to make very basic multi-paragraph emails or essays or something. Now here's an example of a substandard that doesn't apply before a certain grade. Does at the higher grades, but not before. So substandard 4.3.2, which expresses the main points or point. This applies to larger points contained in a longer piece of writing. This is coming together from 3 different descriptors in the companion volume for B1. One is propositional precision, can convey simple, straightforward information of immediate relevance, getting across the point they feel is most important and can express the main point they want to make comprehensibly. But it also draws on the written planning descriptors for B1, can work out how to communicate the main points they want to get across, exploiting any resources available, although at B1, your resources are still developing, and limiting the message to what they can recall or to what they can find the means to express. And also, it builds on the flexibility descriptor for B1. They can exploit a wide range of simple language flexibly to express much of what they want. So putting all that together, we came up with, for 10th grade, generally expresses comprehensibly the main point he or she wants to make. And by 11th grade, when they're supposed to be reaching B1, at that point, they should be able to express comprehensibly, not just generally, but pretty consistently, the main point he or she wants to make. Then we also have an example of a substandard that applies at the lower levels, but is not an issue anymore at the higher levels, at least not at B2, not at B2, B1 rather. So in the companion volume, the descriptors for notes, messages, and forms talk about messages from A1 to B2, and then notes at A2 to B1 levels. Forms are only mentioned for pre-A1 and A2. So we only have this in the standards for grades 2, 3, and 4. So grade 2, they fill out very simple forms using names, places, numbers, and single words.
Go
At
to next
grade
slide.
3,
Next slide.
oh, it's not showing?
We can't see the slide. We are talking, please, maybe, okay, that's okay now.
Now it's showing? Okay, yeah, it's-
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was, okay, I'll go back so everyone can see what I'm talking about. In the companion volume, there's a table describing notes, messages, and forms. And messages are addressed only for A1, A2, B1, B2. Notes are in A2 and B1. Then forms are pre-A1, A1, A2. So we only have forms being covered in grades 2, 3, and 4. So for grade 2, we have them filling out very simple forms using names, places, numbers, and single words. Then for grade 3, fills out simple forms using single words, and they can also use very simple isolated phrases. By grade 4, they should be able to use the names, places, numbers, single words, simple isolated phrases, but also very simple isolated phrases and sentences. So not fancy, elaborate sentences, but basic, simple sentences. And normally on a form, that's all you would ever have to do anyway, until you're middle-aged, and then no one likes to do those in their first language anyway, with our long answers. I think that's good for the standards to cover that. Moving on now to talking about assessing writing. And when we assess writing, we want to use authentic tasks. Here I'm using authentic in the same sense it's used in the language testing and language assessment literature to mean it's resembling real life, real world language use. Something taken directly from the real world, we call that genuine, but that usually has to be adapted anyway to fit classroom use or testing use. So when we're planning, it's a writing assessment. It's usually best to adapt authentic classroom practice activities. Classroom practice activities that don't resemble real life language use are probably not good. If the assessment is going to tell us how well students could use writing in real life, we should have them do tasks that resemble real life. Just as if we want them to be able to write in the real world, we should have them practice in class and for their homework doing real world types of writing, or close to it, as close as they can at that level. Now, we have some recommendations for how to do this adaptation. You should start with an authentic, guided, or communicative classroom practice activity, something that simulates real world language use, and use that as your template. The practice task should be authentic. I'm sorry, is this slide showing?
No, excuse me, can you
Go
move on to that one?
Next one.
Here. So let me stop sharing and then start again. That might fix it.
Should be
You see it now?
24.
Not yet. I think it will take
Assessing
like
writing.
a few seconds to display on the screen.
It's apparently taking, sometimes
Yeah.
it's instantaneous, and sometimes it's like a minute.
This one,
It's
yeah.
like developing
definitely this
authentic
one.
tasks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me back up then. It's best to adapt authentic classroom practice activities, not inauthentic ones. Yeah, here are some recommendations for how to do this adaptation. One thing is you should start with an authentic, guided, or communicative classroom practice activity. Again, something from class that was like real life language, like a real life writing task. Use that as a template for the testing task or the assessment task. And the practice task does need to be authentic, but you may have to adapt it though, so it works on a test. You should not change what was being practiced. That is, you should use the same grammar point or the same pronunciation point, new vocabulary words, addressing the same reading or listening subskill, the same type of writing, anything that was in the classroom activity, that should be kept consistent when you're testing it. But you can change and should change things like having them write on a related topic. Not the same thing that they did in class exactly, but related, so the vocabulary is consistent. Or you could keep the type of writing the same. It was an email asking for information, have them write an email asking for different information. They wrote a paragraph describing X, have them write a paragraph now describing Y or describing Z, but just changing the topic perhaps. And there are references, by the way, in the actual standards document with some more resources for looking at where to find methods for this. And I've changed slides. I hope you can see the new slide. Wrapping up talking about developing authentic tasks for writing assessment. When we write the actual prompt for a writing assessment, it's essential to give clear and specific instructions on for the prompt. The students should understand what they're supposed to write. It shouldn't be a puzzle, it shouldn't be a guessing game. So make it clear to them that what they're supposed to do. Tell the students also what criteria will be used in the scoring. And these criteria need to be the same criteria that are in the scoring rubric. So if the scoring rubric looks at content, organization, grammar, and vocabulary, don't tell them spelling is very important because that's not on the rubric. If spelling is part of the rubric, then you need to tell them that spelling will count. So is this one not showing yet?
Next.
I just got a message from Armina. Is the slide not showing?
Old one.
Still something. Okay.
Yeah.
Stop. And is it showing yet?
Coming up, maybe. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay. I think sometimes unsharing and resharing maybe forces it through. You would expect the Microsoft products to work better together, but oh well. So tell the students what criteria will be used in the scoring. So if it's a writing assessment, it's scored on the basis of grammar, vocabulary, content, and organization. Tell the students your writing will be graded based on your use of grammar, your use of correct vocabulary, the content in your ideas, and your organization, the way you organize, hold everything together. If you want them to use a specific grammar structure, a specific word, a specific expression in their responses, if you want them to use certain vocabulary, then the prompt needs to clearly lead them, push them in that direction so they know they're supposed to do it. There might be another way to do something, to write something, and it's perfectly legitimate. It's just not what you wanted. But that's not the student's fault unless you can make it clear, do it this way. If you say do it this way, then they need to do it this way, not that other way. So the directions are very important. Also, you need to be sure that the topic or the situation is something that students are familiar with and that they're able to speak or write about in their own language. So if it's, and that can be hard to remember what kids know and what or what we know that they don't know. And that all the time with children. What do you mean you don't know? Oh, okay, well, oh, you're only 12. Okay. We have to keep that in mind, and that's very challenging, but we have to do it. I've changed slides. Can you tell me when it comes up?
Not yet.
One more thing is students, we need to know that students have learned how to organize this type of writing. If they have only written paragraphs, we can't ask them for essays. If we have only taught them to write a series of 2, 3, 4 sentences that are sort of connected, but not a true paragraph with a topic sentence and everything, then we can't expect them to have nicely formed paragraphs with a topic sentence, 3 connected sentences, and then a nice concluding sentence. If we haven't taught it to them, we can't put that on the test. We also need to give them time to revise and edit their writing. Now, if it's a sit-down test, there still needs to be enough time to write that, then go back and fix what you can. If we're assessing, grading them based on something where they have several days or several weeks to write, plan, write, improve, we need to have enough time for that. We should have one example of that last would be if you have a piece of writing that goes through multiple drafts in several lessons, then you use the final draft as a summative assessment for that unit or chapter after a week or 2 or 3. For the end of the semester or end of the year summative writing assessments, you can also use portfolio assessments. Portfolio is a collection of student work. It's composed of all the drafts of the pieces of writing that that they're covering. So if let's say it's 10th grade, students had 4 essays this year, then maybe at the end of the year they have to put all the pre-writing in every draft for essay number 1, essay 2, essay 3, essay 4, or pick their 3 best essays out of the 4. Then usually in the portfolio, there's a cover piece or reflection piece. They write a paragraph or 2 about essay number 1, a paragraph or 2 about essay number 2. What did I learn from that? How did I improve? What do I do better now? What did I learn from this? The cover piece it's good for the teacher to see it, but it's mostly for the student's benefit because it helps them see how their writing is developed. It pushes them to look at their writing and see how it has improved. And now moving on to scoring rubrics. When we assess writing, we need to have a rubric. That's a set of descriptions for how the students perform at different levels. This helps the teachers give consistent, systematic scores. It's not just, I think that's a good one. Oh, I think that's medium. Oh, that's not very good. Oh, this one's good. You have descriptions of what each level looks like.
You can please go to next slide.
Yes, I already did. Here, I'll do the same trick again. Stop sharing. Share. Is it coming up yet?
Coming.
Okay, so again, I've explained what a rubric is, and then the different levels on the rubric are known as score bands. Each score band has 1 or more descriptions of how learners perform at that level. If it's a level 1, what does writing look like at level 1? What is the writing like for level 2? And the descriptions of the performance in one score band are known as the descriptors. So let's say they're on level 3. The descriptors for level 3 are the different descriptions for that level. Now, analytic rubric is one where you get separate scores, separate ratings for different aspects of the writing. So again, if you had a rubric that covers grammar, vocabulary, content, and organization, every student gets a grammar score, a vocabulary score, a content score, and an organization score. Then you can average those or use weighting to make one more important, one less important. But that's analytic. A holistic rubric just gives one general score. I prefer analytic rubrics because I think that, well, they are, all things being equal, more reliable, more consistent, more errors, average things out. And individual raters, if I think grammar is more important and Darmina thinks that organization is more important, it doesn't affect the student which one of us graded their paper because we're giving the 4 separate scores. And so it's more fair that way. The high stakes rating also requires rater training on how to use the rubric. When you see a rubric, it's very easy to misinterpret what was meant by the test developers. Getting it exactly the way it's supposed to be requires training people. And then after there's training, we often need to re-norm, make sure everyone's at the same level, no one's kind of drifted off to getting more severe or more lenient, being softer or harder than they're supposed to be. And that does happen. And section 7 of the standards document, tools and criteria for evaluating student achievements in teaching foreign languages, has more details on all that. And that brings us to the questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see people.
Thank you, Nathan.
And I'm very sorry about the slides not advancing. I promise I was advancing.
It's okay, Nathan.
So I will try to check the chat and then address some questions if they have. So,
Please ask questions.
okay. Yunan Hajieva thinks that writing is very challenging for students because they don't know how to pick up the ideas or organize them. So, writing is really tricky for our teachers. So we would really appreciate if you give some tips how to improve them step by step.
Well, you have to explain the writing. You have to explain the organization. It's true. Writing is challenging. The nice thing about writing is, though, you do have time to think about it as you're doing it. One important thing for organizing is you have to teach the students how to organize. They're not just born knowing how, unfortunately. One thing is show them a model and point out, here's how the organization is. Give them a couple of models. And then a second thing would be, let's say it's a paragraph. Keep it simple. You could give them examples of 5 or 6 sentences in random order. Say, okay, which one looks like an introductory sentence, a topic sentence? Which one looks like it would be a good concluding sentence? Then find, okay, which one seems like what order should we put the ideas in? Maybe it's a listing paragraph. Maybe it's a what I did on summer vacation paragraph. Then it's narrative, linear order, type, chronological order. How should we arrange these 3 middle sentences? Then you have the students plan, give them like a worksheet or something on the board, like what am I writing about? Then what are my 3 ideas I want to share? How do I wrap that up? And the concluding sentence, just like conclusions with essays, that's actually one of the hardest things to write, one of the hardest things to teach, honestly. But it's important. Those of us who've gotten good at writing, we just kind of do it. So the books need to help the teachers with, okay, what are some tips for writing a good concluding sentence to a paragraph, a good concluding paragraph to an essay or email or something. And for an email and an essay, they'd be a little different. But we have to go in order. We can't talk about write an essay, and then explain essay structure in chapter 5. And we need to have good articulation from grade to grade to grade. So if grade 5 does this, grade 6 needs to know grade 5 did this, I have to build on that. Grade 7 builds on grade 6, explaining everything as it comes along. Maybe a little review at the beginning of the year because students forget during the summer. Sad but true. At least American students do. And let's see, organization. The next thing after they have a draft, well, they plan their, let's say their paragraph. Then I would have the students do peer advising first and say, have a worksheet. Say, okay, number 1, look at your partner's paragraph. Do you see a topic sentence? Yes. Underline the topic sentence on their paper. And so you're writing on your partner's paper. If you don't see a clear topic sentence, right? I don't see it. And maybe the topic sentence is sentence number 2. That's not where we want it. Next, do they have a concluding sentence? Underline it with a dotted line. And okay, if they don't have one, say no concluding sentence. Then you see, do they have 3 other sentences in the middle? Okay, yes or no? No, right. Only 2 sentences, only 1 middle sentence. If they have the 3, does the first one look like it should be number 1? Or should the second one be number 1? Should the third one be number 1? Write a small number 1 in a circle in front of the one you think should be number 1. Then which one should be second? Write number 2 in front of it, small. And then number 3. Okay, now give your paper back. And then the student that wrote it, first, they've just been looking at another person's example, looking for, oh, there's a topic sentence, or oh, there's no topic sentence. There's a concluding sentence, or oh, there isn't one. These sentences are in good order. They're not in good order. Now they're looking at their own paper. They see what another classmate said. And you have to give them very clear step-by-step instructions and then watch. And you have to train the students to follow these instructions. But it gets better with every paper. They start following instructions better because now they know what you want. And so now I look at my paragraph and go, oh, they thought my topic sentence was sentence number 2. Ooh. So what is that sentence number 1? Oh, that's an example. I should move that down. I think they're right. Maybe I disagree about these 2 sentences being out of order. Okay, it's my paper. I'm responsible. But at least I'm thinking about this, thinking about the concluding sentence. Then I rewrite my paragraph, looking at what they said and thinking, and me looking at it and thinking. I rewrite my paragraph. Maybe now I give it to the teacher, and the teacher can comment. Also, the teacher is looking at something that is better one step than before. And I think we all know, I hope you agree, good papers are faster to grade than bad papers. I have to write 100 words about what is wrong with this paper. That takes longer. If I only have to write 10 words, I can watch TV tonight with my wife. I'm not grading papers all night. That's not a small thing. So that's one example of how. And you scale it up for essays or longer emails. You scale it down for text messages, notes, short 3-sentence combinations that aren't quite a paragraph yet. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Can I add something?
Please.
The thing is that the teachers and students haven't got used to writing a paragraph properly. Whenever they are asked to write paragraph about something, they put lots of ideas there, but still they forget about developing 3 ideas first. So they pass all the stages of steps of writing a paragraph or an essay. Therefore, the essay or the paragraph becomes unsuccessful. We can't remove the stages. So the first thing we do, it is putting the IDs, and then look at the IDs, which IDs are relevant, which IDs are relevant. So we cross out irrelevant IDs. We plan it in order it looked like a paragraph which is talking about one or two things clearly. If the controlling sentence is telling you Nadmina, for example, is lazy, I don't know, sleeping a lot is supporting ID there. You put the controlling ID and you support it immediately. If you put three things, you have to put three different IDs that are supporting what you have given in controlling. And the controlling ID should be immediately agreed with concluding sentence, in other words, but support it immediately. So you can't write everything about Nadmina in one paragraph. Whatever you have mentioned, you have to support it. So this part is missing in Azerbaijani writings. Probably it comes from the language itself. I don't know, the attitude towards writing. But still, it should be kept for future planning of writing, the process writing. First, let the student give as much ID they can. Then lead them to choose one topic sentence and then support that sentence with other sentences that is definitely telling you Nadmina is hardworking or she's energetic. Support this. So the priority of developing the standards is mostly in writing. So this is quite new for teachers. And I hope this webinar is going to help. These standards are going to work. I'm so enthusiastic about that.
Yes.
I'm so
Inshallah.
optimistic about that. It will work.
And I am with Narina Khanum because even when I remember when I was a student, our textbooks were only, how to say, rely on grammar translation method, so which was not like effective. But while teaching the CLT approach, which gives the students more opportunity to communicate while improving those four sub skills altogether. However, before, let's say, writing or speaking, how to say, could be left in the shade. I don't know how to express that because we weren't asked to speak and etc. I mean, even the textbooks that they didn't encourage us to speak. It was only just like reading and completing the tasks based on the grammar, right? So I don't know what is the how to say root that caused this problem. Maybe in outdated teaching methods that still some teachers applied those in their classrooms. Maybe I don't know. So because I read the comments and Sabina Khanum thinks. Sorry, excuse me. Let me find that one. Here. I read the chat and the comments. Let me see all of them. Sabina Khan thinks that it's because of the students that they cannot even organize their thoughts and structure of the essay in their L1. So it causes more confusion when it comes to L2 or L3. So what do you think?
I think that's true. I think I've forgotten now. I've been told that it's been a year or two ago. What grade students in Azerbaijan start organizing thoughts into a paragraph and then start writing essays? I believe it was junior high schools when they start learning essays. So that's when you can introduce essays really in the L2. They have to know it in the L1. And you talked about moving from grammar translation and audiolingual those were common, especially in the Soviet period. And they're still common all around the world because the teacher doesn't have to speak the language that well, but also moving into CLT, moving a national curriculum is not easy. It takes time. It is hard. It takes work from the teachers. It takes work from the government and the textbook writers and test developers, everything. You look at Korea. I'm getting old now. I think it's been 15 years ago. They said, okay, we're going to switch to CLT. Go now. Go, start. Okay. 3, 2, 1, go, switch. You can't, it's not a light switch that you can flip on and off. It takes time. It takes some periods of adjustment and improvement. But now Korea has moved along. Now they're a center where people go to study English and also to get college degrees taught in English. I know of someone who went from Vietnam and got a master's in TESOL or applied linguistics in Seoul. But everything was taught in English, but it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. And this is going to be a process, and everyone has to be patient with themselves. It will take, as I often tell my students, the first time you teach something is the first time you do it. Expect that there will be some issues. Just do your best to do better next year and move a little better next year. Add one more peer advising activity every month. Add one more something. Collaborate with your friends, trade things. I'll plan this activity, you plan that activity, and build up. And eventually, suddenly you will find yourselves at the destination you're trying to reach. It's going to be a process, just like the process approach to writing. And I will say, we're supposed to do the webinar next month on speaking. Speaking is supposed to be part of the curriculum, definitely. But you have to have both.
And there is another question, says that in your opinion, how many English lessons per week should there be in primary school to implement all the standards effectively? English is only taught once a week in our primary school. So from first grade to the fourth. That's why they want to know how effective it could be. Once I'd say you just entered this classroom only one time a week.
Armina, you're more familiar with the local context than I am.
Yeah, Nathan, unfortunately, it is not the job of standard developers. We are not dealing with that. But still, I do regret about it. I would say once a week, 40 minutes, that makes only an hour, maybe in a month, 40 minutes a day. Just one day, it contains one day during the whole month, right? 24 hours doesn't even come out. So therefore, I'm for increasing the hours in elementary school in first grade. The teachers are right saying that, but still, we are not dealing with it yet. We are dealing with standards. How to, yeah, it's a policy, that's right. So we are not dealing with
policy
it.
Decision.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, the more hours you have getting exposure to the target language, the more hours you spend producing the target language, interacting in the target language, the faster you will develop, of course. So we'll see, hopefully these targets will be achievable with the planned number of hours. And I don't think we can assume that these will be the standards for the next 20, 30, 50 years. That would be crazy. I would say in 5 to 10, maybe 5, they need to be re-examined to see how things are going. And then do the standards need to be adjusted? Does something else need to be changed? But again, those are all policy decisions to be made by the appropriate officials. We're just putting together the standards as best we can. The mandate was follow the European framework and try to reach B1 by the end of 11th grade, A2 by the end of 9th grade. And so, okay, that's what we're delivering.
And,
So the standard, the explanation is really very helpful because the teachers know to what extent they have to make the student get developed in each stage, getting from standard, substandard to substandard in the next grade. So it is smoothly carrying out to success. I know it is, the beginning is always difficult, but if the teachers are carefully reading all the standards and substandards, they will see a close knit between them, which carries to the success. For example, as I have already mentioned, the paragraph writing is still difficult for my first-year students at university because they have never and ever done that. I'm asking them to write about, for example, home country. Majority of them maybe joined the webinar because I told them to watch it, and I'm going to call their names here to provide an example. They write about everything about hometown, but still no supporting IDs, right? Today we gone through the cluster and they immediately see their own mistakes. So I've taken one written paper and made a cluster, flight attendant, where the features of they have mentioned doesn't match with flight attendant, energetic, or being friendly, for example. So there are other words there. There are other sentences. They jump from one ID to another, while they have to support one definite ID that they mention in the first main sentence. So it is still difficult, Nathan. It will take time, but still, yes. I'm proud of the job that we have done supervising you. You supervised, and the teamwork.
Well, I'm more pushed and suggested.
Yeah. Thank you, anybody, for supporting, for being all this next to us. The thing is that it will happen. I'm pretty sure about that.
I can't believe it's been 5 years, actually. We could argue this process started in 2020 with the first Institute of Education and State Assessment Office, both working together, doing things during COVID. I was doing the middle of the night, California time, doing the workshops, and we had a series of 3, and then a 4th one, developing what the very, very roughest versions of what became the standards, which then needed about 8 months, I think, of intense work to get the draft standards. And then we added, we haven't even mentioned, in the standards, for each substandard at each grade level, there's an example task. So here's an example of what students might do for speaking, for writing. Write a note about this, write that. So all that's meant to be a guide for the teachers. And that was a major undertaking. It was what, another 3-5 months of extra work, Armina, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
But just regular meetings, and go back, get to work, and then meet again next week on Zoom. And it was either late night my time or late night Baku time.
Yeah.
But I think we did a lot of work, and I think we've got a good product. I hope it's close to approval. And I really, the goal was to make this something that'll be clear and usable to help students get better. It's not going to be magic, but I think it's going to be a good tool for helping language teaching and language learning. We have very clear, understandable, not vague or fuzzy, but very clear, specific targets for every year in specific areas for the writing and the speaking and the reading and the listening. That's what we've tried for. I hope everyone will agree that we did it.
I think it's a really productive webinar because everyone keeps asking so many questions. So I try not to skip any of them, and I also hope that this webinar will provide our audience with practical insights to apply in their classrooms. So the next question is coming from Leila Karamova. She asks that how do these new standards reflect the principles of communicative language teaching approach?
Do you want to do that one, Armin, or do you want me to?
You two, you go first.
Okay.
Because it says
It was in your
teaching
slide, huh?
approach.
Well, first, we based everything on the CEFR. At times, we had to fill in gaps in the CEFR, but it's very much aligned with the CEFR, grounded in the CEFR. And the CEFR presupposes, it assumes communicative language teaching. All the tasks, all the example tasks are about communicative tasks or communicative language use. We tried to have as authentic as possible. Now, at the lower levels, you can't do very much. So, you know, it's like, I want this, or you give me that. The box is blue, things like that. But communicating from the very lowest levels, moving up, the focus being on using the language. We want when the material, of course, the materials, the textbooks, the activities, everything will have to be communicative too. You'll have to move from presenting new rules, whether it's inductive, where they have to infer the rule, or it's deductive, you just tell them the rule, then give examples. Then controlled practice, moving into guided practice, where it's their two students have a gap in information. Each one knows something that the other doesn't. Then moving on to more open-ended practice, communicative practice, where it's more authentic, more lifelike, more free discussion, or more authentic activities like role plays, for instance, unscripted role plays, where you're actually having to produce the language and try to communicate. Now, until you get to a pretty high level, that's going to be very basic communication, but it's still very basic communication. I can tell you from my own experience, you don't have to speak a language very well to be able to get around using it at the B1. I'm probably about a B1 plus in Mandarin spoken, about written. And I've lived in Taiwan for 3 years using Chinese all the time. That's part of why I moved from A0 to B1 in 3 years, is because I was getting communicative practice every day. If I wanted to get lunch without someone taking me like a little child by the hand, like a babysitter to buy my lunch, I had to learn. I want that. I do not want green vegetables. I was in my 20s and not healthy. But that's why we have assumed everything is going to be taught communicatively. All of the information in the standards about teaching and assessing is focusing on communicative language, learning to communicate, and assessments requiring students to communicate. So that's an excellent question. I hope I've addressed it fully.
Okay, thank you. So can I read another one?
Of course.
Okay, so Gönül Islamova, she says that what methods can be effective in checking and correcting mistakes in writing? You know, most teachers correct mistakes with red pens in order to show the students the right way to express their ideas. But sometimes it can be demotivating for students to see lots of mistakes in their paragraphs. You know, when I was in the US, trying to observe the US classroom. So my teacher, she was using a pencil only because she said that this is the way we teach them, that you can always correct your mistake. You can always erase them. So this is the thing that I heard,
Is it
which was
typed?
quite new for me.
If their paper is typed, I like to use pencil so I can erase, right? I have to erase too. I have messy hand. Oh, I can't even read that. They'll never read that. If it's typed, you can also insert comments. You can make track changes. It's better if we don't correct everything, but if we point out everything. Now, I'm Gen X. I grew up with red on papers and I don't think it's that big a deal, but I know there are people who think, oh, so if they're writing in pencil, you could use blue ink, black ink. I had a colleague who used, Cheryl Zimmerman used purple ink a lot. All her grading was in purple ink. Some people use green ink. Okay, whatever, it's the color of the ink doesn't matter so much in the end, so long as they can see it. If they're writing in pencil, make it in blue. But it's probably better not to fix all the language for them, but either just circle something or maybe have abbreviations, maybe like VT for verb tense, or PV, passive voice. Have a set of abbreviations, share them with the have codes, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, but give the students the codes, because they'll, what's number 7? I don't know. Yeah. So codes are good. Underlining or pointing at something is good. Little comments. It's better not to fix everything for them. That's something really complicated. And honestly, at B1, it's not going to be very complicated usually.
So the teachers firstly give the instruction, the correction codes to students. They get acquainted with correction codes, and then in margin, it's better to mention the code and let the student think about their own mistakes and correct it, or do peer correction. So the student change their papers and check one another's paper, and then come up with the advice how to write, where to correct it, why to correct it. So it makes the student think over their own mistakes, and they remember when they go through it themselves. We can't fix everything. We can't cross out everything. It is not a good idea to correct with red pencil, making the student get frustrated or get disappointed about their errors. Error is human. I'm always telling my student, don't worry about your mistakes, but still work on it.
Yeah.
Thank you. And there is another one. What practical steps can teachers take to align their classroom practices with these new standards?
It's very
Well,
general.
the textbooks, to start, the textbooks will have to be modified too. But you can start almost, for instance, you almost never find a textbook, I think, that has enough communicative activities for speaking or for writing. So when you're teaching something, you have to think, okay, what kind of production activity could I give them that is going to be authentic, that uses this thing we're teaching, the vocabulary words. Usually you have a chapter or a lesson, it's got some vocabulary, it's got a grammar point. Maybe there's a pronunciation point, maybe not. So I need them to do some kind of speaking tasks, and I need them to do some kind of writing where they use that grammar and they use that vocabulary. Okay, what kind of vocabulary when do you use that vocabulary? Well, look at the book. What were some topics they did? Oh, Joe and Susie are talking about their science class. Okay. Writing. Write a note to your friend about science class. Okay, and what kind of note? Well, I need to make them do something that uses this week's grammar point. Okay. And so do that, make it simple, and tell them, write 2 or 3 sentences about the grammar class. Or maybe it's 1 sentence, depending on the grade. Or 1 to 3. The weaker students write 1, the better students write 3. That one kid who studied in Australia last summer, he gives you a little paragraph. Okay, make it so there's a range of responses that the different students can give you. And you have them write that note to the friend or the text message to the friend, and then you say, okay, what is it? What are some problems with these? And okay, how could they fix it? Are they all on topic? Or did they use the right verb? Do they have enough sentences? Like if they only have one sentence or two sentences, maybe I can help them think. I could take my one sentence and make two, or my two sentences, I could add a third one. You maybe model several example paragraphs from the students. So, okay, let's take this one. I won't say who. Here are the two sentences. Now, what's something else I could say? What's a third thing I could talk about? And use models, try to get the class thinking, model the development process. How do I do this? I know. That's how. Just you have to supplement the activities, communicative practice. If I can ever get that book written that I want to work on this fall, it's going to be about coming up with these practice activities, because it's something teachers have to do, because the books just don't usually have enough communicative practice, speaking or the writing.
No textbook is written for the teacher's own class. There's nothing like that. So I know my class, I know my students, I know which materials in a textbook is suitable for them and which are due to change, substitute, or I replace reading with another reading from other textbooks, or I bring authentic material, adapting it to the level of my students. So textbook is just a roadmap. It shows you, you start from here and where does it carry your students to, but still you're free to change the materials inside according to level of your student, according to the student needs. So we have to analyze it. Why we write syllabus in that case before we start the classes? Only for this case, in order to know your students better, your class better, and to know their needs. And then you develop your syllabus, improve it by adding not only one textbook, not based on one textbook, but based on different materials.
Okay. So
This is
already,
somewhere that you can bring in AI also. Oh, okay, go ahead.
so already we are coming to an end of the session, but I have a question. As a teacher, I'd like to know that
Sure.
PPP model, which really drew my attention while you were presenting it. So please, can you just tell me how this model supports writing activities? Just a brief info would be
Okay.
better.
It's not the model for a writing lesson, but it is the model for grammar teaching.
Mhm.
And if you are using, if you've already covered the pre-writing, well, when you've had the presentation explaining a grammar point, then you have some controlled practice, maybe a drill, maybe a worksheet. We don't want to overdo it, but we want the students to be comfortable enough with the new grammar structure and the vocabulary we're covering, so they could be successful now in the other tasks. Then the writing, well, I want you to write a paragraph. Again, I'll do the paragraph, sort of a late elementary and junior high school thing. Write this paragraph. I need to already have explained how to organize the paragraph. Maybe a previous lesson, maybe I stopped the grammar and I talked about paragraph organizing, planning the paragraph. And then they draft the paragraph, but it's a paragraph where they use that grammar structure. Now, this is covering writing and it's covering grammar at the same time. Likewise with speaking, maybe I'm working on pronunciation and grammar in speaking at the same time. I have one activity doing two things, but I have to, it's like if I have a table, you know how sometimes your table is wobbly, it's not flat. I have to have legs, I have to have the legs on both sides, all four sides really, but you have to have the buildup for the pronunciation and the grammar. And with these activities, with the writing, you have to have the grammar and you have to have the how to do the organization and the ideas, all of that.
So it's
The one other thing
interrelated.
I wanted to add, it's all interrelated. You need grammar for reading, for listening, for speaking, for writing. Reading matches writing. Reading also matches speaking. I talk about things I read. I write about things I hear. All this is interlinked. The one thing I wanted to add, it's a whole nother webinar, is using AI. Something I'm looking at now, only gotten a little bit into it, but I have plans to actually research this. Using AI to write reading passages for you that have the vocabulary that you want. You need to feed it the list that it should use. And the question is, how well do different AIs work? If you try one AI and it doesn't work very well, try a different one. They give different results, and also it depends on the language. For instance, ChatGPT seems like it might be okay for English, but I can tell you for Arabic, it is not good. It is weak. I'm at A0, maybe A- something in Arabic still. But it's just not good with Arabic. But on the other hand, Grok, Grok, which is from Twitter X, seems to be better at language. I know that Grok translated a research article for me from Korean to English. It took about 4 minutes. It seemed like a good translation. I have a colleague from history who says Grok is good for translating classical Chinese, 1,000-year-old history texts into modern English. Does it well. And it recognizes when a term is obscure or difficult. And so Grok is a good one to look at. Claude, I have another colleague who's a Spanish novelist, says that Claude is very good for Spanish, English translation. So for languagey stuff, try ChatGPT, try Gemini. But then I would really especially recommend trying Claude and Grok for if you need extra reading passages for something for students to write about.
Can you please later
But
share
don't trust
those
it.
links?
Don't trust it though.
Okay.
It's Claude. Just do a web search. Claude, Claude, like the
Okay.
French name, and Grok, Grok.
Okay.
So
So I will share them
Grok.x. Yeah.
in the group chat. Okay. I mean on Facebook. So okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Once again, I'd like to
Thank you very
thank
much for inviting us,
both of
Gulnaz.
you. Yeah, I'd like to thank you both of you for taking your time for supporting our teachers. And also, we truly appreciate all the effort and dedication you have put into this webinar and also this foreign language curriculum. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to end the session then. See you soon.
See you.
Okay, have a lovely day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.